In this episode of Supply Chain Now Radio, Liz Vamos, industrial organizational practitioner with Show Me 50, discusses gender diversity in supply chain management and how you can engage with lean-in circles around Metro Atlanta.
Supply Chain Now Radio welcomes Elizabeth Vamos. So Elizabeth is very busy. Let me read off some of the things that she's up to these days. So she is currently, beyond being a Show Me 50 participant in different events, she is currently serving as the industrial organizational practitioner at Show Me 50. She is currently serving as a leadership assessment developer at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC. And she's also a current graduate student and proud Bulldog
Yes.
at the University of Georgia.
Yes.
How do you get any sleep?
Not that much, actually.
Well, we're going to lead off with, as our listeners know, we feature a high-performance minute with our partners at Show Me 50. Elba Pareja Gallagher is giving great progressive leadership in not just the supply chain space, but the business space. And Liz is on her team, and we're going to tackle this high-performance minute. So it helps us all get better at what we do. So, Liz, what are we talking about today?
Well, just kind of tying in everything that we've talked about today that Ben and everyone has covered, we're looking at data. So as an IO psychologist, being a business psychologist, what we look at is we look at data. So we look at organizations and we look at what the problem lies and where they need help. And talk about creating a healthy environment. So the biggest thing right now, unfortunately, is sexual harassment in the workplace. That's a big topic right now, not only in the entertainment industry, but now getting to the organizational level. So what we looked at, the Quinnipiac University poll, they said that of the American women who have been sexually harassed, 69% of it experienced at work. That's a big statistic. That's a big problem that we really do need to address on an organizational level. So the problem is that everyone knows that training and culture change are necessary for change to happen. But it's kind of like storm preparation. We all kind of put it in the back burner unless it happens. So it's happening now, and it's something that we do need to address. So some of the things that, Society of Industrial Organizational Psychologists, some of the steps they tell organizations to create that healthy working environment space for these women is to show your support. So organizational leaders need to show support to the victims and making sure that they have a great psychological space for them and that they're able to talk about what happened to them. These leaders also, number two, need to follow through. So that needs accountability, which we're all talking about with transparency in businesses and holding leaders accountable for the organization. So they really need to be explicit in the expectations and the culture that they have and have a no tolerance zone. That's a very big thing. And they also need to audit their culture. So seeing how other people and how other people interact with one another. You see it on Glassdoor and some of these other places that kind of talk about culture and how they kind of work. So you really need to make sure your employees are happy and there's an auditing culture and kind of how they react to, situations like this, either severe or not so severe. They also need to look at their policy. So a lot of people don't even know their sexual harassment policy, which is a big issue. So looking over your policy and seeing if you even have a policy and making sure that all employees are in the circle and are aware of that. You also need to provide a variety of training. So not just, at the top levels, but also at the employee level. Because a lot of employees feel like it's touched upon, but it's not really dives in depth. And that's a really big thing is having that training. And it all goes back to encouraging diversity, which is another thing. If you have a more diverse working culture and you have a gender diverse, racially diverse working culture, it's going to have a great atmosphere and it's more likely that less sexual harassment will actually happen if you have that gender diversity kind of culture. And the last thing is really providing meaningful training. So basically, the biggest thing that we talked about, and especially in Show Me 50 2 weeks ago, was that people think that HR is kind of like to protect the organization as opposed to protecting the employees. That's a big issue, and a lot of people see it like that. So, and going back to, making sure you provide training, making sure that HR knows that they're there for the employees, not just for covering the organizations, all their legal standpoint, but also there for the employees, which is a big thing we were tackling in the Show Me 50 that actually Scott co-led with Elba. And it was a really great conversation. We're getting men and women involved in sexual harassment because it's honestly a subject that's really taboo and a lot of people, it's really makes a lot of people uncomfortable, but it should be a topic openly discussed.
Absolutely. And we want more men at these lean-in circles. So,
Right.
So a couple weeks ago, as Elizabeth talked about, when you got together the evening of Martin Luther King Day to talk about harassment, and we had a great group, but men were in the minority. And for the next Lean In Circle, which is February 19th, the third Monday of each month, we're still determining the topic, but we want to encourage males to come out and learn more and just engage and learn how to be aware about some of the simple, innocent decisions we're making, but they may not be the right ones.
Right, exactly. Just involving women and making sure they're part of the round table is the biggest thing. And it takes both genders in order to move the needle. We always talk about this. We've talked about, creating that healthy environment. You need both genders in order to create that healthy environment. And both people need to be inactive in the process. And our top organizational leaders need to be in that process too.
Yep.
So that's kind of the biggest thing, is holding everyone accountable for their actions and moving everything forward.
Yep.
Now, you mentioned data, the importance of data, and we've touched on this before in other areas. But with so many women experiencing some sort of sexual harassment, or would you say 69%, 70%?
69%, yes.
I'm sure there's a lot of companies who, in their own head, leadership thinks, oh, we're good here, it's not affecting us.
Right.
And obviously it is. If 7 out of 10 women are experiencing something, then it probably is right underneath their nose and they're just not aware of it. Is there anything companies can do to kind of get a feel of, is this really happening in my organization? I mean, some of the leadership may not even know that they have a problem as part of the team if people don't speak up, if it's not even kind of getting to their attention. So like you mentioned Glassdoor, I'm sure if you periodically check your ratings in some of these websites and you're seeing like, oh, don't work there. If a bunch of women are saying you don't want to work there, some of the leadership may not even be aware there's a problem.
Right. So the biggest thing is with a lot of organizations, especially the higher up leaders, they're not really in contact with HR a lot. You might have some of the CEOs talk to a little bit of
They might think, oh, I'm progressive.
Right. I'm transparent. I'm great. Exactly. And you have people coming out that are saying it's actually not. So people that are speaking out is really helping. But these bigger organizations, like what we're talking about, they really need to examine their culture. So they really need to go back to the drawing board, even if they don't think they have a problem, making sure that if they don't have a problem, fine. They find out they don't have a problem. But if they do, finding out early.
But how do they go about, like, what are some things they can implement kind of company-wide to get a feel for if there is a problem? Like, is it like, how come, a bunch of women are quitting from a certain department and no one's paying attention and connecting dots that maybe that there's a boss there that's a problem person?
Right. So a lot of it could be assessed through like exit interviews. So why you're leaving this company. Unfortunately, sometimes with sexual harassment, it's so kind of hushed and a lot of it's not reported. So it's really unfortunate. We do have data, but it's obviously very limited. So we look at, exit interviews. That's one of the big things we look at. We look at employee engagement surveys are a big thing. So how do you like your organization? Kind of improvement surveys. As a business psychologist, we kind of look at data. We develop surveys in order to really address that.
Because the leadership needs some breadcrumbs to follow to see if there's really a problem.
Exactly.
So let me go upstream here because things not getting reported. There's a root cause there, right? There's probably several, but I was talking with my wife Amanda. We both attended the last Lean In Circle, and I was asking her what is her biggest takeaway from that very frank, positive conversation. And for her, and really for us, it's not being reported. I would argue one of the reasons is women are not comfortable reporting, and if you take it a step further, not beyond the harassment piece, but in board rooms are leaders encouraging women to participate and valuing their opinions and feeling and making sure they feel like their opinions are valuable and equally heard? That's the simple step that many leaders can take. And I think kind of separating the business side to the personal side, as a father of 2 daughters, my wife Amanda talked about how important it is, based on that conversation, to intentionally and deliberately teach our daughters and all kids, but especially young girls, that it's okay and it's encouraged. They're encouraged to speak up and share their opinion, whether they see something, say something, that kind of phrase, or just weighing in on a subject. They need to know that not only is it okay, but their perspective is valuable.
Right. So the bystander effect, people passing by and not saying anything is a really big issue with this subject. So that's also another thing that leaders can do. They can encourage a culture where employees speak up. So not just the person that's getting harassed. If you see something happening, the third person speaking up, because it's really hard for someone that's experienced that to speak up. But if a third party speaks up, then it can be addressed and then it will really promote that. So that's one of the other things we do recommend is promoting that. Other people, when you see something happening, speak up. And it's been something that has been going on, unfortunately, for a long time. And now it's getting, the attention. But now let's move the needle. Let's keep on going with this. And let's kind of really change at a, top leadership organizational level. So there's a lot of things that, leaders and even employees can do.
And if people don't quit jobs, they quit bosses. And
right.
Those are some clues here.
Mm-hmm.
If you have somebody, an area in your company that people are quitting, and especially if they're female,
mm-hmm.
you might have a problem.
Yeah.
Big problem.
You
Right.
can't just turn a blind eye to this stuff anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Or you shouldn't at all.
Let's make it a no tolerance zone.
Right.
Let's intentionally do something. It's the small things that lead to the big things. And we can start in our homes, and we can certainly start by really, again, oftentimes it can be innocent decisions, innocent things said with no bad intent meant, but we just got to be more aware. Going back to what be conscious.
Right. And you can't tolerate, that's just Bill.
That's
right.
right.
That's the biggest
That's just
thing.
Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Ha Bill's a good guy.
He's always like
That's
that.
just
yeah.
Bill.
Mm-hmm.
That is a great point. We need a T-shirt like that too.
Right.
No, that's just Bill. That's no longer good enough. It's no longer good enough. So if you want to learn more about Show Me 50 and all the great work they're doing, of course, Apex Atlanta, we're thrilled to be partnering with them on our Gender Gap Task Force. Check out showme50.org. And Elizabeth, how can folks reach out to you? Not that you need any more projects, but how can folks reach out to you?
Yeah, so if anyone has any further questions or, wants me to look at lovely data for anyone, you can definitely contact me at my email, elizabeth.vamos, V-A-M-O-S, @gmail.com. Or you can also look me up at LinkedIn, same name, Elizabeth Vamos at LinkedIn.
Awesome. Appreciate that. And certainly one of the themes throughout today's show has been the importance of technology, the importance of data. We need data scientists and folks know how to use it. And Elizabeth knows how to use the numbers. So
Too much
terrific.
so, but yeah, I look at data all the time.
So great show today, Lee. We're going to wrap up on some events we've got coming up. Dave mentioned the Georgia Manufacturing Alliance earlier. They're going to be partnering with us on that Braves event in April. And good news with Jason Moss and the GMA, they're celebrating their 10th anniversary. And they're doing so with a February 1st dinner meeting at the 57th Fighter Group restaurant over in Chamblee. Have y'all been to that place?
I have. It's been some time, though, Scott.
Oh, it's cool. It's like a World War II themed restaurant at the
right on the runway. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. So check out that 10th anniversary event at georgiamanufacturing.com. We talked about our February 16th lunch event, joint lunch event with CSCMP and Apex Atlanta at the Metro Atlanta Chamber. Registration's live there, so check that out at the CSCMP website or apexatlanta.org. And members and non-members are all welcome to join us.
And we reduced that cost too, so that's right. It's a very fair price. I think we got it like $25.
It's very close to that, I believe. Yeah, very reasonable. And of course, rock and roll star Ben Harris will be giving a presentation on hashtag Supply Chain City and what that's all about and why Atlanta is such a special world-class place. The Apex Southeast District meeting is in Savannah on March 2nd and 3rd. We're going to be featuring a tour of the world-famous Georgia ports and Gulfstream, which has, I believe, 33 different facilities throughout Savannah. So check that out. If you're a current volunteer primarily, or if you're interested in being a part of the Apex Savannah chapter, which is new, you can check that out and you can reach out to me for more information there at evp@apexatlanta.org. Finally, we talked about the Georgia Logistics Summit. That's April 9th through the 11th. Georgia.org. You can find out how to register there. We've got to get a direct link to that. This has come up, I think, in the last 3 shows. We've got to give a very short and sweet URL to encourage folks, like a one-click registration. Finally, I want to thank our sponsors, Apex Atlanta. If you want to learn more about how to plug into that community, again, check out apexatlanta.org, and Talent Stream. So if you're looking for top talent in the engineering, manufacturing, and supply chain space, you can check us out at Talent Stream at talentstreamstaffing.com. Lee, what did we miss?
I think you covered a lot of it, but I want to appreciate all you guys for sharing the information. And Elizabeth, if some